This week on Reality Hub.
You know, the history of our human body, the history of our planet. And I just started to see a greater pattern reveal itself to me. We've been programmed to translate our emotions and our emotional experiences through such a narrow bandwidth. We have the ability to access versions of you that are living and experiencing life through time and space, whether you want to perceive that as a past time or a future time. They're all occurring simultaneously. We all have the choice now. Will we choose to return to the original premise of who we are and to connect with what I call our original intelligence? Or will we choose to be assimilated into an artificial technical world? Whether you believe the virus is real, whether you physically contract the virus, the fact of the matter is it is implanted in our human awareness and consciousness. Every one person on the planet is aware of it. It is the arrival of something which is triggering one of our most primal and original wounds, and it's the fear wound, the survival wound. And that's going to manifest in everyone's life in a very different way. And so it may appear that there's only two choices right now. And what I'm beginning to discover is that there actually is a third option.
And welcome back to Reality with Reality Hub. It's been a little while since we were on air, hasn't it, Rob?
I know, it has been a while, but I'm so glad we are here now.
Yeah, gosh, it's been a journey, a real journey for me in particular.
Yes.
Some tough times, and we might get into that either today or in another episode.
Exactly.
But we do have a special guest on the show.
A very special guest, yes.
Someone who we've been looking forward to, not just for a couple of weeks, but also all day. And and it's currently, what is the time, 11 p.m. or thereabouts? In New Zealand.
In New Zealand, yes.
And our guest is coming to us live from 10 a.m. Where could they possibly be but at Greenwich Mean Time, somewhere around Ireland, I think. We have today Niamh Cronin. She is a modern mystic, an international speaker, storyteller, facilitator, and founder of ORI-GEN. She travels the world facilitating her work through workshops, events, retreats, and online training. Her unique approach consists of utilising modern-day transformational tools and ancient teachings and using the arts as a means of translation. Niamh provides a space to remember, where you can embark on a self-paced, inner experiential journey into your body's natural intelligence and wisdom to reconnect you to who you really are. Niamh joins us from Ireland. Hello, Niamh.
Welcome, Niamh.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's so amazing to be here, and especially to be connected to you all the way in New Zealand.
I feel like, knowing a little bit of your history, that we should have met you at some point in our past in New Zealand, but you got as close as Australia, or did you actually make it across the ditch here?
I did. I spent 2 whole months traveling New Zealand. So I actually have family in Wellington, and so I spent a whole month traveling the North Island, skydiving over Lake Taupo.
Nice.
I even did blackwater rafting in the caves, and I was at Hot Water Beach
Yes.
as well. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And I never actually got back there. In the 8 years I was in Australia, I always wanted to come back and explore New Zealand even more. So who knows? Maybe sometime in the near future.
Yeah, because it's a crazy time we're living in, right? With this whole traveling the world. And yeah. So, I mean, maybe we can get into that a little further down the track.
I love talking about that topic. But Robert is just sick to death of it. He's absolutely phasing out of it, to his credit.
Yes.
He just goes, I don't need to know.
Kind of had to.
Yeah, my life doesn't require or revolve around the news cycle. That's cool, yeah.
Well, the programming that's out there, and kind of going beyond that and listening to your own inner voice and wisdom and reason, you know, and getting past the societal program. We talk about this all the time on Reality Hub.
Yeah.
Just going beyond our own programming, and which brings us to you, Niamh. getting back to more our natural essence and state, and listening to our own intuition and inner voice and that sort of thing. So is that something that you've always been on a kind of journey, or is that something that sort of came as an epiphany or a realization or a breakthrough moment?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I guess as a child, I always questioned everything. I questioned life. And I remember always my grandmother was a very pivotal figure in my life. She was my connection to, I guess, the spiritual realms. And I grew up as a Catholic. But I often remember asking her, there had to be more to this existence. There had to be more to life. And she was my guide, and she would always suggest I pray to the saints and connect with God and through prayer. But I remember even, having conversations with some of my friends in primary school, probably around the age of 9, and, asking and having questions like, I wonder if we're part of a larger experiment and that we're being observed on this planet. And, having these really peculiar conversations for a young child. And looking back, I guess I was always very empathic, very intuitive, and I would always feel and sense so much more in a room. And I guess as a young child, I used to mistranslate what I was feeling. So if I entered a room, I always seemed to know what people were holding, what they were feeling, what they were carrying. And I always translated that as a projection of how they felt about me. And so I struggled a lot growing up with that, because I felt judged, or I felt that I was not seen by others. And so my childhood was challenging emotionally. And I guess as I grew up and not really having the space to express some of those intuitive or empathic gifts, I suppressed them. And in my late teens, I started to develop anxiety, and I suppose what we would now call depression, or what the medics would call depression. But really, what it was is I was really beginning to feel so much more. My capacity to feel was so much more than my mind could comprehend, and I had a lot of trouble translating that. And so, my mid to late 20s was a really challenging era. And it wasn't until a sickness when I was in Australia that actually was the catalyst for my awakening. And maybe we might get into that, but it was really, a sickness that became the moment to be with my true gifts and to really understand them. And I went through what some would say a spontaneous awakening. And that was in late 2014.
Yeah.
What did that feel like? The moment of awakening? Was it, oh my gosh, what's this? Or was it something more pleasant, like, oh, this?
Yeah. So I guess I would be, some would say I'd be clairsentient, like I feel a lot through my body physically. So I went through a very physical sickness. I collapsed at work, and I was working in the corporate space at the time in software. And I collapsed and was admitted to hospital with heart issues, and was very, very unwell. And it was almost begun like a sudden epiphany. And then quite rapidly over the days while being in hospital and then my recovery, I just really started to see this connection between my body, my emotions, and to understand that there's like a greater intelligence at play here, and that I had an opportunity to translate this as a sickness, or to see it as something greater, a process that was allowing me to expand. So I just started to have a greater awareness that there was so much more to life. And I just started to see a greater pattern reveal itself to me. And it wasn't like I picked up any spiritual books, or in fact, I actually did at times to try and find a reference point to what I was feeling, what I was sensing, what I was knowing about, the history of our human body, the history of our planet. I couldn't really find many reference points in New Age spiritual teachings or religions. And I found myself in a very unknown space. But equally to that, I also felt quite centered and quite at home with this new level of awareness.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, there must have been a real scary kind of place, but then I kind of felt maybe it was also, there was something like your higher beingness was guiding you. And so there was, it's almost a paradox. You might have felt that safety as well, that you trust this process, this journey. But what an amazing thing to go through, but at the same time scary, but knowing that this was something, maybe your body's wisdom letting you know that you needed to go through this in order to get to this next level of awareness, perhaps.
Yes, and particularly, leading up to that, I was living in Sydney. I was working in the corporate space, partying at the weekends, like really living a very different life. Yeah. And then to all of a sudden go through this awakening and not really have friends that I could speak to about it. Or particularly family, because
they would understand. They would just get it.
Would understand. Yeah.
Do you think that? Because it's funny, like you talk about that corporate life and the partying, which is, in essence, there's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, there was something with you that was incongruent for where you needed to be. So, like, hang on a minute, no, this is not what you should be doing. Here's a clear message. Sign, whatever. Do you think, did you interpret it that way initially, or was it more just see where this goes?
Yeah, it definitely, I feel like our body's intelligence will naturally guide us to keep us on a path or a set trajectory to allow us to expand and to evolve into our natural state. And of course, we've choice within that. And I feel like in some ways I'd been getting gentle nudges for a long time that I was on the wrong path, and that, and I wasn't listening. I had kind of shut down. I had suppressed my natural awareness and my gifts. And I was
what
just
was
living.
Happening for you just prior to that collapse in terms of the way you felt, and how had you changed or not changed since you were a little girl, where you could feel other people's the things they carried?
I guess in a way I really began to suppress my feminine, and when I got into the software industry, particularly as a young woman moving to a new country, I really felt I needed to lean in, to work hard, to really prove myself. And at the time I was working for a top Fortune 500 company in Sydney, and I was the youngest and only female manager in the team. And I guess I fell into that pattern, which is, I really wanted to prove my worth and my value. And but to what expense, you might ask. And I also knew that I was on the wrong path intuitively. I always felt that I was here for something greater, and that I was here to help others and to give back to this planet in some way. And I really didn't feel I was channeling my energy in a direction that was creating any impact.
You could say that corporate environment, that ecosystem, was not conducive for you to flourish. Well, in some ways, because you can learn from it.
Yeah, true.
But the whole corporate environment's very hard. Like that's a Kiwi and an Australian thing. It's very hard. You got to be real hardcore, or it's a hard mix and kind of masculine energy, isn't there?
It seems to me that Australia, because I've just resigned from the company I was working for, and we had an Australian component to it. It seemed to me that people earned points in their mind the later they stayed at work. They earned points for the more they could be seen answering emails late into the evening. And whereas in New Zealand, it was like, mate, if you haven't shut off, what's wrong with you? you should have, and that's me being a little bit pro-Kiwi, but there's a harshness sometimes in Australia that really pushes people. But
Right.
then if everything happens for a reason, I mean, that happened for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. It is. And I look back and I think, wow, what a catalyst. Because I believe that true natural awakening and expansion occurs when we create the most dense, compressed, we create a focal point. It's like almost like a nucleus. And we need increased pressure in order for us to expand out into our natural expression. And so sometimes we manifest and create these experiences in our life that bring us to the focal point. And I look at that time, I think, I created an experience in my life that created so much pressure internally because and Richard Rudd talks about this as well. He talks about that pressure is a natural evolutionary force that is required in order for us to evolve as a species. And how we translate that pressure is pivotal. It's key. And that's why, like, part of what I have remembered and part of what I'm sharing with others so they can remember too is we have an ability to now translate some of our experiences in a very different way. And this is the remembering that's happening at this time because we've been programmed to translate our emotions and our emotional experiences through such a narrow bandwidth. But as we begin to come back into our bodies, we begin to allow ourselves to feel more of our emotional landscape, and begin to translate them effectively, then we begin to access a greater language that allows us to translate a myriad of frequencies and dimensional realities in the most profound way. So,
does that knowledge come to you instinctively? Is this like a remembrance you've had?
Yes. Yeah. And it
what
has
must
been.
That be like?
Yeah.
What is that like? That's special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels so familiar and so innate. It's and the biggest part of the journey has been to trust it, to trust that what I know and what I feel is real, especially in a world when everything is created to, in some ways, distract you from that or to tell you that that is wrong.
Tell us about ORI-GEN or ORI-GEN and how you prefer to pronounce it too, because I feel a little embarrassed.
Yeah, that's okay.
Tell us what you do there and how you help people.
So ORI-GEN, in a way, the word I feel is in some ways a key. And this is, as I began to remember more of my natural intelligence and connect back to my roots, my origin in Ireland, is, the remembrance that language and the Shanachis, that we would say in Ireland, were the ancient bards and storytellers, and they were the carriers of the memory. So in our ancient traditions, the true memory of our origin, of our species, wasn't captured in ancient texts. It wasn't. It was actually, they knew that the memory was held in our body, in our DNA, and that DNA, that memory, could be activated through the power of word, through the power of storytelling, because our words act as energetic keys. And specific sounds would activate that. And so origin, Ori, that word it's actually a Latin word, and it can be translated as to rise from the roots. So to create a field or a space that allows people to enter into a remembrance and to connect back to the original prime source of who they are as human beings. And Gen, Gen, there's multiple, ways we can translate that. There's one, it's the genesis, remembering the original genesis of the human body, and something which I have not yet found in any teaching or any book, and yet I can remember that there's an even more ancient and primal blueprint to our human genetics and where we come from, how the human race was seeded on this planet. And also GEN represents, our genetic blueprint, an original genetic blueprint that, for the most part, I feel as human beings, because we've had a limited frequency being expressed through our physical bodies, we've been only expressing a fraction of our genetic potential. But as we begin to expand and allow more frequency to flow through our physical bodies, we begin to express more of our genetic potential. And so the intention with ORI-GEN is to be a space, because you cannot teach someone to be who they already are, but you can create a space for them to remember. And that's one of my original intentions, is to offer a space, particularly in today's world, a fixed point in this spinning world where people can come and go on an inner quest and begin to experience who they really are through their own personal experience. So you're not teaching someone, but you're allowing them to embark on a journey. And over the last, 8 years, I've been synthesizing and integrating my own understanding of what our original blueprint is. And I've been creating a blueprint. And that blueprint it's multisensory, so it's not just a physical blueprint. And my intention is to share that as a map or a companion, not the map, but that people will have a starting point. They'll have somewhere to begin, so that when they begin to go on these inner quests and connect to their body's intelligence, that they'll have a reference point and they'll have tools to be able to navigate and to translate their experiences.
Wow.
I'm just trying to process all of that. I have so many questions that came from there, like literally everything that you were saying. Oh, there's a question. So a point of reference, and you say language specifically, key words, would they be specific to your cultural programming, or where you were born, or your genealogy? I'm just trying to backtrack, like from a point in terms. Do you understand where I'm getting at? Mm-hmm. So you found the keys, so to speak, with your cultural heritage, your background. But would that be an innate thing for all human beings that we can unlock?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And it even predates language itself. So it's the remembrance of sound. And in actual fact, in our natural state as human beings, we wouldn't even use sound unless we were evoking a specific intelligence or memory or awareness to open up. Yeah. And so much of our natural innate language is actually through our emotional intelligence, and it's a feeling-based language. Yeah.
Because I often say this to Steve on our show. Sometimes words, I can't articulate what I want to say, what I feel. It's like a different language, feelings, emotions. And language is useful, but it's still a construct, and it's very limited, I find. So the ability to then to go into other, as you say, frequencies and other expressions. And I've always felt that as human beings, we're so limited in our capacity to actually connect with just the entirety of the universe. I've had a couple of really profound experiences where I felt like I was absolutely connected with the universe. I don't know, but I can't articulate it. It's like we talk about, I know George talks about this a lot, about being a fractal of the universe, compressed in this, that as above, so below. And but it's so hard to articulate sometimes.
Is that where you might use art to facilitate the way a person can connect? Just a thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it is, because I can only ever share from my direct experience. And I always remind people of that. And I'm just seeing and perceiving things through my lens. But my experience is that the true memory of who we are, and to be able to access our true infinite nature, it's beyond the intellect, and it's beyond the linear constructs such as language and even thought itself. And so my journey has been about remembering how to journey into the body, into the heart's intelligence, but also into the emotional center, emotional memory, which is in the sacral area as well, and to be able to begin to access our natural creative essence. And so that's why art as a medium can be a really profound tool to support us in getting into our body and accessing and moving into a non-linear state. So we begin to access information beyond the intellect. And quite often, if you ever find, if you're drawing, or if for me, I'm an artist, so I've always been very creative. So when I enter into that state, you enter into the no time. So in some ways, it's like a 0 point. It's the entry point out into an infinite spectrum of potential. And that can be a really profound gateway to help us just move beyond the programming and the perspectives in which we see and perceive our reality. And also, so another way is, so there's art, and then there's mythology and storytelling. And Joseph Campbell would say myth is to the collective as dream is to the individual. And nature speaks in myth. That's a quote by Martin Shaw. He said, nature speaks in myth. And so in order for us to begin to converse with nature and with our natural intelligence, we must remember how to dream with her again. And so that's why I found incorporating and contemplating on some of our mythology and tapping into that creative, our imagination. It allows us to begin to dream and converse with the natural intelligence. And we also, like in Indigenous Dreamtime culture, they'll talk about entering the dream time, right? So this is, I guess what I'm speaking into, I feel it's woven into so many of our ancient cultures. And that's why maybe I've been drawn to different parts of the world, like Australia, the Indigenous people, the Maori culture, South America, and even of late, I'm connecting with an Indigenous culture in Maui, Hawaii, that date back to ancient Mu Lemurian culture. And so I have been connecting with a friend there, Keone. Keone Hanley. He's the first man in his ancestral line to now express some of their ancient teachings that have been forbidden for them to share for over 20,000 years.
Ooh.
And he was one of the first people that I've met after George that is expressing this same memory of our natural intelligence, our emotional intelligence. And for me, that was very significant that, okay, what I'm now sharing, what I'm now expressing is very real. And this has been something that these people that derive from Mu culture have known and have kept secret and safe until now, until such time we as human beings can now become responsible to remember.
That's really interesting. You go.
I just had a whoa, just wait a minute there. 20,000 years. And then you picked what I was going to say, that now maybe now is the time to remember for a greater number of people, or greater to allow that information into the collective
collective consciousness.
Consciousness, yeah. Because that's huge. That is huge.
Well, that makes me want to ask you, and this could be a bit simplistic. What is your model of what is real? What is beyond?
You mean your
religion.
perception of reality, or
well, no, kind of like if I were to say to you, Niamh, do you believe in past lives? You might say, well, yeah, maybe. But you probably would say, well, I believe in something that is so much greater than that kind of new age concept. What's your model of what is? Because if you ask me, at a rudimentary level, I would say, well, I believe we have multiple lives and we get closer and closer to source. But I might not be able to do much better than that.
Different incarnations. Is the remembrance more of learnings in multiple incarnations or past lives? I guess, is that what you're trying to
and let's really load this question to get to me. But not only that, but I was going to ask you, how is remembrance non-linear, right? Because we were talking about that before. And so if I said to you, well, do you believe in past lives? That's kind of a linear idea of time.
Yes.
But outside of that construct of what we are as maybe infinite spiritual beings, maybe time is just a thing we enter into when we do this. And so therefore, if you believe in past lives, you might believe in future lives co-concurrently.
Well, and then we can throw it out there and go into multiple timelines. and then having a multi-dimensional nature of that's not non-linear.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that aspect of me which is living as a grain of sand somewhere with that other aspect of me on the other side of the planet that's a tree. So hit us with it. What's your take of it all?
Okay, great question, and something that I think about a lot. For me, I feel our body is it's the intersection point between the heavens and the earth. And the more I've begun to really be grounded in my body and to be more present, I begin to enter into experiences where we have the ability to access memory through time and space, through our physical body. And so time in itself dissolves, and in any given moment, as you begin to remember, you can actually begin to versions of you that are living and experiencing life through time and space, whether you want to perceive that as a past time or a future time, they're all occurring simultaneously.
Oof.
And we can actually access that in our physical body without having to astral travel, without having to move into these altered states of consciousness. We can actually access this memory and awareness through our body in real time, through practice. And it's, for me, it comes back to memory and shifting the vibrational field of our cells to almost attune to an aspect of ourselves that is living out a certain experience. Where I come across this, I suppose, in my client sessions and with working with other people is, and what I love is I really feel like the Indigenous Australian people will speak about that in the dream time, you can access and pinpoint if you are experiencing something in this life, such as a wound or a block or a trigger. By accessing the body's intelligence, you can actually travel into a memory or an experience that is unfolding simultaneously. Some may perceive that as a past life, and they say, oh, well, what you can do is actually go into that memory and reconcile that, because a part of our aspect of our soul may be stuck or looping or trapped in that experience, and we can complete that, reintegrate that fully, and then once it's reintegrated, you can now access all the memory through time and space, all the experiences, all the learnings, all the wisdom from what some people may call a lifetime, when really it's just another aspect or expression of your soul that is experiencing life. So, and then you've got, your planetary, and then you obviously, the more you get into it, you can also explore your cosmic and your universal expressions of life as well.
Okay, so if something happens to you that's really quite traumatic in the here and now, this lifetime, are you potentially reliving something that's happened in a past life, or from how you've described it, concurrently as it occurs in the past life, which is at this point in time for both you and the past life version of you? And if you resolve it, are you the healer of a past life and a current life at the same time?
It's I when I work with myself, and also when I'm working with others, I never like to make presumptions, because the body's intelligence is so innate and it's so profound that I simply ask the body to reveal the origin, the source of the trauma, the source of the wound. And in that, it will actually reveal to the person, or if it's myself, to me, it will take me to the source, take me to the memory. So it may be something that happened in this life, in your childhood, but it quite often, the more and more I'm seeing, is as we're awakening, you see, we're beginning to expand the space that we're taking up in our body, our physical bodies. So as we expand, we're going to be able to access and feel more. And part of that is we're going to begin to access these parts of ourselves that are living out these alternate experiences. And, if we're having this conversation, and perhaps the people listening to this conversation, we may be at a point in our soul's journey where we're going through a process of completion and integration. So we're having to integrate aspects of our soul at a human level, but also at a cosmic and universal level, so that we can come into the full remembrance of who we are. And George talks about us, really coming through, we're completing a whole universal journey. And sorry, I don't know if that answered your question, but I feel that some of the clients I work with is, without any altered substances, without any extensive breath work, or, when we learn how to be grounded in our body, and just through gently working with this natural intelligence, you can go into spontaneous memory recall. You can go into these experiences and begin to heal these aspects of yourself, integrate them. And, Rumi says light enters through the wound. And so why I'm so passionate about going into the origin or the source of our wound is that through time and space, all else shifts. So this is like Mary Magdalene and the original lineage of the Magdalene, and not what we probably hear in, a lot of these books and teachings. But that lineage of women, they held a memory of learning how to transcend time, to enter into the 0 point field, to pinpoint the source of an illness or a sickness or a wound. And through time and space, all your cells of your body would shift, reattune, and ultimately we can access more of our true and innate memory, because our wounds are the doorway. Our wounds are and this is probably why what we're experiencing on a planetary level right now is we have to go fully into the wound. We have to go fully into the manifestation of the chaos, because what lays in and beyond the chaos is the antidote to what we're seeking. It is the source of who we are.
Yeah.
Sorry, sometimes when I do speak, I do sometimes feel like, and feel free at any time to pause or ask me to stop, but I do sometimes feel that it's not a channeling, because I'm not I don't channel, but I do enter into a space where that intelligence begins to speak through me, and I do find I can go on and on. So just stop me at any time.
We're loving it, Niamh.
Fascinating just listening to that, because what you were doing was accessing your body's natural innate wisdom right there and there. And I feel, and the thought that came up for me, I think a lot of human beings have lost that innate ability and then give that power over to the experts, modern medicine, or they try and distract and numb rather than get back to the origin of the source, because the only way for healing is through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I've experienced in my own life and with people that are close to me, is that they'll do the avoidance mechanism of distraction, numbing through medication or, whatever's on offer. I mean, particularly in this age of technology.
Speaking of which, like in this age, what do you think is the best way for listeners maybe of this and of yours to get back to their natural essence? What would you describe your natural essence as too?
That's...
I feel like our natural essence is it's so natural and so innate, and it's I guess in today's world we're just so distracted and we have so many things vying for our attention, and that pull our awareness and keep it fixed on our external environment. Even our phones and our screens, we now have like a constant fixed point. And I suppose our natural essence is, I find the more we can, even if it's for a few moments a day, just to turn our arrows inward, to, if you even need to, close your eyes and just even, putting something over your eyes and just practice, just ever so slowly turning your arrows inward so that you can create just as much internal direction. And as we begin to do that, you'll begin to notice that there's a world within us that we haven't even scratched the surface of exploring in terms of what we know, other than what we've read in books. Like even in a lot of spiritual teachings and doctrines, we are taught and given a blueprint in how to connect to our body. We've been given teachings to show us that there's a chakra system or a blueprint to connect to our energy centers. But what if we just put all that to one side and gave space to truly allow ourselves to explore who and what we are without any lens, without any blueprint, and to embark on that curious journey, because it is a challenging time right now, and I feel we are at a genetic choice point right now. We're right in the thick of it. And that choice point is we all have the choice now. Will we choose to return to the original premise of who we are and to connect with what I call our original intelligence? Or will we choose to be assimilated into an artificial, technical world?
Because that was going to be one of our questions about where humanity is right now. Is it divided into those people that are willing to do what you just said, or will they just go down that other path?
It's the technical world, artificial intelligence.
Some call it the matrix or the system or the program. That's an overlay, which is not a natural construct. Do you think more people are being opened up to that? And because of recent events, it's been a catalyst for people to go more introspective?
Are they trying
to ask those questions?
Are they trying to force us into it with there's the pandemic?
The pandemic, yes. I mean, because I've always been naturally curious since as far back as I can remember, and I've always just been open to the things that were sort of not part of the normal narrative. But I think that's just normal and natural to be, that you can access so much more about your reality. What I was going to say is that it takes a lot to unprogram yourself
Oh, yeah.
and unlearn everything you've learned and go back to more of your natural essence.
And who's got time to go back to their natural essence when technology can bring you things so fast, or at least it seems, it gives the illusion.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at that splitting point, right? And will we go this way or will we go that way? This way, this
Yeah.
artificial intelligence,
And it's
is
so alluring.
tempting.
And it's so
alluring.
tempting. And
I mean, I can just put a Neuralink in my brain, right, and I'm good to go. All the promise of telepathy, I'm going to have that.
yeah.
You know, so how do we avoid it? How do people come to find themselves that they're greater beings, so much more than all of this, before it's too late, if they don't know?
Yeah. I feel like we're
Sadness, man.
This is one thing that I've talked about a lot, about the system at school. I felt like I was being mind programmed for, the system was doing its work. And I was very sick at school. I used to get these terrible migraines, and it wasn't until later on in life that I realized that, of course I was, because I was getting programmed in this part of my
You were being compressed into this bit. Yeah.
But everything else in my body, my intuition was telling me this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. But I was too young to kind of process and understand it. It wasn't until I journeyed back and healed that aspect of myself and did the inner work that I went, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I think we're so bombarded with information through the media channels that it's easy to just be programmed.
Yeah, and what some people might call other spiritual avenues that are offering solutions too.
Sure.
And promising ascension and awakening and humanity going into another dimension. And, what's your take on that?
The 5D
Niamh?
ascension.
Because I'm not entirely sure it's not just more of the new cage,
Yes, there's so much in just what you just both shared there. And I just wanted to offer just maybe a contemplation, something that I'm experiencing for myself right now is, so however we choose to translate this pandemic, or this global experience we're going through, it's the first time in a very, very long time on the planet where all of our focus, every person's focus, has been brought into a central point of awareness. So everyone is aware of this global pandemic. So what that's doing, right, is it's creating a nucleus, it's creating a focal point and a pressure. And that pressure is the pressure needed to cause this evolutionary, you could say mitosis, so the splitting of a cell, right? So this is being engineered to create what I see is the grand splitting.
Wow.
The grand splitting of our genes and our genetics. And we won't get into the RNA vaccine and virus or anything like that for now. But when you think about it at a deep level, a virus is really a strand, of RNA. And when we evolve as human beings, which we have been on this planet for hundreds and thousands of years, the process of our evolution, we reach these points where there are genetic keys and codes that we hold that are no longer required to move with us into this next evolution. And so what the cells do is they expel that genetic data and we release it and then we mutate and evolve beyond it. But what's happening right now is I feel we're at a genetic choice point. There are souls who have evolved to the maximum dense, most compressed aspect of who they are, and now are ready to return back to the source. Right? So they've evolved and separated to the furthest, most compressed aspect of themselves. And there are some souls that are still on that journey and will choose to to enter into an experience where they will explore what it's like to be fully assimilated into a technical world and to become even more separated from their source. But those that are aware enough at this time will actually see this is the time of Corona. It's the time of taking back our crown. I haven't actually shared this with anyone before, but our crown being our genetic ring. So we do. So what's going to unfold and is there will be pathways offered to humanity in the form of technical and artificial intelligence that is going to match and mimic the natural intelligence that is equally awakening within our body. But depending on where we fix our awareness, will determine on what we choose, because those who may be distracted may not be aware that innate telepathy, that innate connection, that innate ability is awakening within their body, because their awareness is fixed here. Their awareness is plugged into what they're being taught and into even the spiritual teachings, which you talk about 5D. They're focused on ascension. They're focused on pineal activation, expansion of consciousness. Whereas those that are in the body and who are grounding into the descension process, which is coming into and calibrating with physical matter, those people are going to go through a genetic mutation and activate the original blueprint, which is what I'm experiencing and what I'm experiencing through my body at this time.
Wow. Oh, I'm just knock me over with the feather. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you might have mentioned it was a little bit Ready Player One.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I just recently rewatched that too.
Yeah.
So many keys in that. I think, like disclosure in that for us.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay. But I think you nailed it when you said descension. It's like everyone's just so focused on ascension, getting to that next level, awakening.
I feel like I've seen this before, back in my New Cage days, my old New Cage days. I sort of felt like everyone was talking about, you've got to raise your Kundalini and,
raise your vibe, yeah.
I never saw anything with anyone. It just meant nothing. It was just talk, and this is, to me, aspects of the promise of things that are artificial just mean nothing to me. They don't.
I think if you've got a good inner radar, you can pick up on that.
Yeah. With what you're going through, Niamh, how can others identify if that's something they're going through as well?
In terms of...
well, they may not be where you're at.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you just, one of the last things you said there before was with the journey that you're going through, was it genetically? You might be in a place where you're, I suspect, further along than some people and can look back, hindsight 2020, and go, oh, if only I could have told myself this.
Yes.
And maybe now I'm in a position to share this potentially shared experience with someone else who's just on the verge of starting this process. What would you tell them?
Yes. Okay. And thank you for bringing it back to this, because it's really, really important for this to be tangible and translatable to as many people at this time. So I guess what's happening right now is we're being grounded in our homes. We're literally, I'm not too sure what it's like in New Zealand, but in Ireland we've been in level 5 lockdown since October. So we're...
level 5?
We opened up for Christmas for...
Hang on, is there a level 5? I thought that only went 1 through 4.
Well, that's here.
And you're
that's
you're in 5?
What the hell is 5?
Yeah, we're in level 5, which means it's just supermarkets are open, and most businesses are closed, and everyone's working from home, and you're only allowed to travel within 5 kilometer radius.
Yeah, it's the toughest restriction. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got just such freedom by comparison because we're the poster child of the Illuminati. They're letting us be free and trying to show off on news networks around the world. Look, New Zealand did all right, didn't they? No, you should do what they. And it's kind of. I've always said to
this
Rob,
is Steve's
this is a little bit of a rant I'll give you here. I think we're being used to make other countries feel bad so that they toe the line like us autonomous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like us robots.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I interrupted you. Yeah.
We are in a bit of a bubble here in New Zealand, though, because we do have a lot of freedom at the moment.
Yeah, thousands of kilometres of oceans might help. But, you know. One of our guests, Richard, came on a few episodes back, and the way he relayed his time in the United Kingdom, he was in London, right? And he just said, I just know so many people with who went through COVID, and we just looked at each other. I don't know anyone.
Yeah.
No, I've never met a soul. What's it? Sorry, this is diverting. Got to get back to what you were saying. But what's your experience been like with meeting and knowing people who've suffered from it?
Yeah, well, you both may be surprised that I've actually had it myself.
You look different.
But in my experience of it and translation of what it actually is may be very different, and is very different to what we're being told. Yes. I actually haven't shared my journey with it publicly. But yes, I went through a 4-week experience where I was very unwell for the month of January. And a lot of my family were sick as well. And it was what medics believed was the COVID-19 second strain that hit Ireland and the UK supposedly in December and January. Is there something making people sick? And was there something here? Yes, there was definitely something. Is it what we're being told? Is another thing to really question. In summary, and I will speak into this soon, and I'm still integrating the experience, but I think what we're dealing with here is a viral technology that can affect our physiology and can be targeted. It's very, very intelligent and it can affect some people, particularly, the elderly but in terms of case numbers and tests and things like that, that's a whole other conversation to get into, and I'm sure we're.
Just briefly, because I can't help myself. I'm a bit of a fool, but a jester. But would I be too glib in assuming you don't think someone just ate the wrong batch of bats one weekend in Wuhan?
Who knows? Who knows?
Because who knows what the truth is, and I think that's the problem is the ability to discern all that information, and that's I feel it's overwhelming. But you said something about how you translated your experience, and I guess each individual would, and that's totally their right to translate their experience the way they need to translate their experience. So if they need to go through a certain experience, would you say that is something that was contracted in terms of on a soul level, or it's just a human experience that you are just so happening to have? How much influence can we have with dealing with something like this, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because I'm a big believer in, have a fitness background, but I've always believed that the body can heal itself.
Yes.
100%. I've done it. So when something external, I'm not afraid of it. I've always said that. I'm not afraid of that because I know that my body will deal with it, and I do all the right things I have this connection, this relationship with my in that, but I realize there are people out there that are not, that they're very disconnected from their innate body wisdom, their ability to heal, the entirety of it all.
And they get taken down by the fearness. The
fear was overwhelming for a lot of people, and that just makes it worse. So, but everyone's going to have their own unique relationship with this, and experience, I guess is what I was trying to say.
So just just be with that for a moment, because I definitely sense we're naturally just moving to these different. The conversation is moving, but I just trust that people listening, that there will be a synthesis by the end of this conversation, that people will be able to integrate all these different touch points, and that, you know, this conversation definitely feels like it is beyond the mind. So it may not make logical sense, but there are certain things that we're speaking into. It is going to activate memory in people. It is going to activate an emotional response. And to just trust that in the days after listening to this podcast, that you may begin to curiously begin to explore some of these concepts or contemplate on them at a deeper level. So the piece on which I just wanted to touch on, whether you believe the virus is real, whether you physically contract the virus, the fact of the matter is it is implanted in our human awareness and consciousness. Every one person on the planet is aware of it to a certain degree, unless you're living in a cave or in the Amazon, which would be pretty amazing.
I wish.
And you're completely unaware of what's happening. But it's here, it's arrived, it is the arrival, of something which is triggering one of our most primal and original wounds, and it's the fear wound, the survival wound. Or you could even call it an original wound. And that's going to manifest in everyone's life in a very different way. To some, it could be that they fear their health and they fear their family dying. To everyone has varying degrees of how this is impacting their everyday life right now. For me, when something like this comes into our lives, it's an invitation for embrace, which we spoke about. I can distract myself from it. I can ignore it. I can even fight it. I can protest about it. I can. We have many different choices, but the ultimate alchemy is to go into it and to complete it fully. So what's happening right now is emotions are bubbling to the surface. People are getting angry. People are sad. People are depressed. People may feel they're losing their minds. They're stuck at home. They've trying to mind their kids. They're trying to work. They've lost their jobs. They're in financial stress. So what's happening is all our primal innate fears are being triggered, and it's causing a deep state of chaos. And that's the choice point. Do we remember how to embrace and to go into the chaos and remember how to translate it differently? Or do we translate it through our programmed response, which is fear, stress, destruction, and then if we're operating from that space, then we may then take what's being offered, which is the solutions that are being offered in terms of take this vaccine and you'll be safe from the virus. Or, what we may see is in the next coming years, a dystopian world. Everything that we know may begin to crumble. And so then there may be new solutions, utopian solutions that are offered as the antidote, right? Or we can use this as an opportunity now to see and allow for the emotions that are arising for us to embrace them fully and to see them as an opportunity to evolve beyond all that we know.
If you take that approach, and you're a listener of our podcast, and you feel so inclined as to want to prefer to work through it, and you think it's one of the things that you just said there to me sounded like good old David Icke, problem, reaction, solution, a little bit. You know, when you say here's the solution that's offered, and let's say like me and Rob, you go, well, I'm just not interested in that solution. What do you do when even that's not enough, and they say, but now you can't travel somewhere unless you take this solution? Or now you can't ABC, XYZ unless you do this. Take this test now to prove that you can have access to the supermarket. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, and I love it. We're going deep here. We're going really deep.
We love going deep.
Yeah. We eat deep for breakfast.
Yeah.
There's got to be a next stage to this. And I'm always thinking further down the track.
Yeah.
And you brought up a valid point where it's a choice point for people. But as Steve says,
what about the non-choice option?
Yeah.
How do I don't know, detach myself from that, sign off from being the citizen that has to do it? I mean, how far am I signed in? You know, was it the moment they documented me as a citizen at birth? Have I signed up for something I can't get out of here, that I didn't really have a
Pretty
choice?
much.
You know, how do I get out of this? Yeah.
How does your human deal with that, knowing that you're on a soul level, it's dealing with it? The practical,
It feels like in some ways, this is a conversation that's probably much a longer conversation to have to really get into the nuts and bolts on it. So I'm going to do my best to kind of, synthesize it in a way. Everyone's journey is so unique, and we're all here to evolve and to experience so many different things at this time. But I suppose, again, when we're in natural life is nonlinear, and in the same way, so within, we'll call it the matrix, within the universal matrix, we see things as black and white. We see things through the lens of duality. And so it may appear that there's only two choices right now. One is to be assimilated into the planned program that is being rolled out, or to resist it and to choose to exert your free will and authority over your body, your awareness. And what I'm beginning to discover is that there actually is a third option, and that is because once we are in, whether we are in resistance or whether we are for what's being played out, we are still under the power of the pendulum. And we're still giving our energy back into the matrix, back into the system. And we're still entangled and allowing our being and our body to be entangled within the system itself. What I'm discovering is that I'm remembering how to untangle my being and my body from all the different dimensional structures of the matrix by choosing to integrate with these aspects that I'm in resistance to and alchemize it and move into a space beyond it, because our natural intelligence, our natural original human blueprint is far more sophisticated than any technical and artificial intelligence that has been created to mimic it. And who we are in our natural state resides in and beyond all aspects of this universal matrix. So I guess to put it in the most simplest language is, if a time comes where I need to physically integrate with that which I fear, which is an RNA vaccine or something of that kind, I know I have the natural intelligence and ability to navigate, alchemize, and to integrate who I am that exists beyond it. Am I there yet? No. But Do I know innately that I have the ability to transcend and to live in a state beyond that? Yes, I do. Because there can be no fear, because the fear, the only thing that this has over us right now is the fear of it.
Yeah, that's what I picked up on when it all began, was the fear. But to come up with that third choice, to transcend or to integrate through it, that's huge.
This is the alchemical process that that I guide people through and have been going through for many years, is to understand how to, this is, George talks about phasing out of reality. Well, how do you actually do that?
Yeah, what does that look like, feel like?
Yeah, you have to, it's the understanding that you are all of natural life. We are both natural and unnatural. There's aspects of our being that have created all parts of this prime blueprint. And so as we begin to remember who we are, we also remember that we created some of these realities. Like, we created even artificial intelligence as part of our universal journey so that we could experience all aspects of universal life. And when we remember that, we also remember our capacity to untangle ourselves from those realities and from their grip and from their control.
Okay, I gotta ask you this. Earlier, you were talking about the focus, the worldwide focal point energetically that this creates. Do you think that can be flipped on its head, inverted, that it's created to bring people into line and to control, but in fact, from within it, because of the sheer amount of energy flowing into it, that we can go into it and blow it apart because of what it's created for itself? It's self-fulfilling.
Yes, I'm smiling from ear to ear because this is it. Because this is how powerful we are, right? One-dimensional reality, we're seeing, this matrix program play out, right?
Oh, it's so matrix, isn't it? It actually is. Yeah. It is like that.
And it's so obvious when you can recognize it and see it.
And when, it's like that idea is, for me, it's like from the matrix, when Neo goes into the machines, all right, I'll join you. I'll become part of it, and I've got it. Now I own you.
Yeah. But equally, and this is like, if anything, if we take away anything from this conversation today, is to understand that at a deep level, if we come back to our body and our innate intelligence, we can utilize anything that is unfolding in our life, any internal pressure, we can utilize and alchemize and use this opportunity right now to transform and evolve ourselves beyond all that we know. Or we can choose to be controlled by it and to be in fear of it. And that's what I experienced with being sick in January, is that I saw this as an opportunity to physically integrate with this viral intelligence and to commune with it. And what a gift. Because it was an activation for me, because I have always and had chosen at this time to integrate with the viral intelligence, and that would activate my even greater intelligence to evolve beyond it. And it was such a powerful gift, because in some ways we are going through genetic mutation right now, and some are going to evolve into a new universal expression. George talks about this in his book all of the time. And that universal expression has not been experienced on this planet ever before. And there are some souls that are not ready for that, or it's not part of their journey right now, and that's okay. For others, this is our exit point. And at every evolutionary leap on this planet, viruses have played a massive role, whether those viruses are man-made or natural. They've always played an evolutionary role in for us as human beings to evolve and to grow. So I'm choosing to see this as the epic choice point, and I'm choosing to embrace it fully, to alchemize and expand and evolve beyond it. In order to do that, we must be in the body and remembering the process of feeling and alchemizing our emotions effectively. And I suppose that's why I'm just so passionate about creating a space and providing tools for people to be able to do that. Because there really is nothing to fear when we begin to tap into what we hold inside.
It's so hard to accept that there's nothing to fear. Even I, someone who is staunchly resisting and will not go with these things that are being forced upon us, I have to accept that resistance has a little bit of fear in it. It's motivated a little bit by, I don't want to be caught up in this, I'm afraid of this, and I want a different path. But to hear you say we're so much bigger than that, we could actually be part of it, and it's hard. It's hard to take that in, isn't it?
Everything that you said, Niamh, is self-empowerment. It's taking the power back within you.
Yeah.
And that is huge. That's just, as you said before, we don't realize how powerful we are, and it's remembering that. And because I know, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners, that we struggle with, the human things about self-worth and playing the victim, etc. And when you start to take the power back, you realize that's a huge thing for someone to do that, to take control back for your own, to take responsibility. And
hearing Niamh talk about this, and even you just then, the thing that pops into my mind as a hopeful thought is, if we are each a fractal of the universe and we are all components of all that is, then I am a component of that virus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got it.
I am part of that virus.
Well, you're not separate from it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's part of me. It already is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that shifts the whole perspective on it and the energy with it as well, doesn't it? Your relationship to it.
Yeah. You say, let's dance, buddy.
I just wanted to just maybe pinpoint just one thing around the fear that, you said it's really hard.
Please.
And because I think it's really important for people listening. I get it. I get it at such a deep level. And the only way I can share what I'm sharing right now is because I went into the fear. Right. And it's direct experience is what we're lacking, because for the most part, and I'm guilty of it myself, we shy away from going in and having the direct experience and trusting our innate ability to navigate as we move into the fear. So I just wanted to, just to voice that is, this is the time of the crowning, corona meaning crowning, right? So it's time to take back our throne. Take back the ownership of our body and our natural intelligence. There cannot be a war or a fight for our throne if we take it ourselves, if we sit in our throne and claim our crown for ourselves, right? So it's really, this is all about empowerment. It's all about taking our power back. And when I communed with that virus, not just energetically, but physically, and I went through, you name it, I must admit, I didn't believe initially that there was a virus. I didn't, but I'm always very open to exploring not just what we're being told, but on a dimensional level, what's actually unfolding. But I went through every physical symptom, and I can honestly say I've never been so sick. I had all of the symptoms that they're telling you that you have in terms of breathlessness, my lungs filling up, sweats, fevers. I didn't leave my bed for 4 weeks. And there was one particular night when I felt my fight, because I was getting weak, from the fight. And of course, this is a microcosm of the macrocosm. And of course, I'm very aware at the time, okay, I'm physically in the process of alchemizing what this virus means on a personal level, but also on a collective level. And I need to go through this so I can move beyond it. So there was a night where I was really weak, and I reached out to an Indigenous woman in Australia, and without even sharing what I was going through, she knew that I was physically moving through an experience with COVID. And she said to me, "You're at the choice point now." And so I communed with it, and I spoke with the virus to understand, why are you here? And in the most simplest way, it said, "I'm here to share, to reveal to you where you're still giving your power away."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then I went through a 24-hour experience with fevers and sweats, and, where I was being shown on all levels of reality, but also all levels within my relationships, within my life, where I was still subtly leaking energy, or I was allowing for the imprint of these technologies, of these programs, to still be hooked into my awareness, to my intelligence. Because our body is a map. It is a quintessential map of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. And so the matrix it also exists within the body. Mm-hmm. So in order to fully, I'm not going to use the word exit, but to evolve beyond it, we have to dissolve and reconcile where we hold the imprints of the matrix within ourselves. And so this virus revealed to me where I was still holding those imprints. And I was able to go through the alchemical process of closure with those aspects. And I suppose in a simplest way, and the questions we could all ask ourselves, and you don't need to physically go through what I went through. I believe it's just, we can ask ourselves, where am I still giving my power away? Where am I still in fear? Where am I leaking my energy? And to take like a full kind of stock take in our lives, where we're not fully owning our power. Because at this time, any leakage is going to affect, our choices moving forward. I do believe in time that as we evolve and move into a space beyond the control matrix, and as we start to take up more power in our body, we will begin to live in a space in and beyond what's unfolding in our world, beyond the drama vortex. It's not going to disappear. It's going to exist, but we won't be pulled back into it. When we heal our wounds and release the imprints in our body, we'll be able to live in a space in and beyond it, and won't be affected, manipulated, or controlled in a way that we feel we are now.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think to anyone listening to this, that information is just so valuable because of you went through that experience.
It actually sounds shamanic to me. It's like going through something, a painful shamanic experience where you have like some shitty mushroom trip or something that you get to go, I am here to teach you this effing lesson. And you go, oh. Do you think that lesson is unique only to you, Niamh, or do you think that's something that it is globally doing for everyone?
Yeah, I feel it's an invitation to all of us, but whether it's our time to go into that, it's all up to us. Yeah. this year 2021 is the choice point. And I think it's going to determine, we all hear in the New Age world about the new earth, and
Sure.
that, I feel like the new earth experience is what's now happening at a physical level in our body, and there will be a splitting happen, not in the sense of people will disappear. We're already starting to see it. Belief systems are dividing families.
Yeah. Sure.
But if we remain in that divide, we're still within the drama vortex. But as we alchemize and move beyond it, we will be living in a world beyond it. And that is the new earth.
We often ask our guests this question at some point in the podcast, and I feel that now is the right time to ask you.
Sure.
Right, in light of what Niamh has just shared, right? Because that was just...
I know. There's so much that I'm just...
So what I want to know,
seriously,
what we both want to know, and all our long-time listeners want to know, is, Niamh, what is your superpower?
All powers.
All powers. You might have more than one. Yeah.
Do you want me to like in a fun way, or just like...
Well, I want the fun one.
Go?
Yeah,
Rob's very serious. No, we want both, because,
both is good.
And if you need any clarification on what we mean, I don't
Yeah.
actually think you can burn holes into the wall with your eyes, but
You've been watching too many Marvel. What is it?
yeah, some of that, yeah. But, we all have an innate ability that other people just go, wow, how do you do that?
Yeah.
What's yours?
Well, the one that comes to mind is, and this is just something that happens whenever I meet with someone. I just have, when I connect with someone, time just stops, and then I just have the ability to see into someone and to see and know aspects of who they really are.
You're very empathic.
Yeah, to the point where when I'm sitting with someone, I can see all the different aspects of who they are. Like, so their face will change, their body, their demeanor. And I can see into, we spoke about earlier, all the different aspects of their being through time and space. And I can enter in and out of those realities with that person. But when I'm with them, that person also experiences it too.
Wow.
And we could do it right now as well, but I wouldn't do that right online right now. It's
I was going to say, do you have to be in physical
in the same space? Yeah.
No.
Wow.
Don't. Yeah. But in simplest terms, people have just reflected to me, like, I suppose on a more normal human level, is just a deep sense of safety and connection and intimacy when I'm with other people. And if, we can have these conversations, and actually I've pulled back from publicly having podcasts and having these conversations, because I feel like right now the most powerful thing that we can do is just to create that intimacy and safety with each other in the midst of all that's changing, and to bring so much lightness and human connection in whatever way that looks right now, because creating that natural field between one another is in itself a shield from everything else. It's like we're creating little pockets of natural life, and those pockets are going to become even more, the more we have these conversations, the more we come together in whether online spaces or offline, these pockets are going to allow for more of this intelligence to evolve. And I know we got into a lot of deep things and about moving through, emotions and going into the wound, but there's so much that emerges on the other side of that. It's important for us to keep ourselves focused on that, because what we're evolving into is so incredible. It's so expansive, and it's so familiar. Just remember that's nothing. It's nothing that we don't already know.
Right.
So not laser beam eyes then.
Although I know I know what your other superpower is.
Go on, what is it?
It's the morning swims in the ocean, in the freezing ocean.
Rob told me about that this evening at dinner. How do you do that? Oh, I said we can't bring that up. She'll show us up what a wuss I am.
Niamh, are you still doing those, or is that?
Yeah, and you know what? To my friends listening, like I was the one that was too afraid to go into the sea swim in Byron Bay on a winter's morning. Like Byron Bay is probably the water is so incredible there.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I moved back to Ireland and I started the sea swims, all my friends were like, wow, because it's the cold is my edge, right? So, but during the pandemic or, this pandemic right now, it's important to keep seeking out direct experiences that you get to see what you're made of. So me going into the sea in the morning, I never want to go in ever because it's freezing. But I just take off my clothes and I just run in. And every time I do, I just see, oh my gosh, I was able to overcome that fear of the cold. I was able to, and you kind of build a muscle memory and a reminder that, wow, if I can overcome the fear of the cold first thing in the morning, and when I'm coming out of the water, I feel so alive, so in my body, so invigorated. Yeah. I'm like, I can tackle anything. Like if I've overcome that, and I know it's really simple, but that direct experience each and every morning is kind of the antidote to how we can face all these changes as well that are unfolding. So, yeah.
I really like that. That's really, really cool.
I love that.
Should we wrap this up and do another one sometime?
Yeah, maybe we could do a part 2 because I know there was a lot that we did speak into that maybe give some space for people to contemplate on it and to allow it to percolate. Yeah. And maybe there's a part 2. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd like that. And I'd like to share, just whilst you're on the line there, Niamh, that for our listeners who wonder why it's been a while since we've had a podcast, is because Bridget and I had a miscarriage. I didn't, Bridget did, but it's what we went through. And it's even just saying it brings up so much emotion for me. And I hope that maybe for those who listen and go through something like that themselves, I wanted to give voice to it for one particular reason. A lot of people go through it, but they just don't know that a lot of people go through it. So they feel like they're on their own. And I wanted to table the topic with you because maybe for people like Bridget and I and others, you might have some suggestions of what an experience like this can do that's positive for you in your life, and maybe something that helps people get through the trauma of that. Because listening to your podcasts, trauma was one of the key words that came up for me that you dealt with in some of your earlier podcasts, and how you help people and find the right space to go through it. Is there anything you might say to me and Bridget, because she'll be listening, that we can gain from a process that you might suggest we do?
Thank you so much for sharing, and I'm so sorry. I know there's no words really to describe what you must be going through. What I can share from my experiences, I went through a miscarriage myself when I was in Australia, and just like with the virus, I decided to commune in with the soul and the spirit of this child that was wanting to come in, because it was so painful, right, to even come to terms with it all. And I tuned in, and actually George talks about, you can invite in the greater being of this soul, and ask it to come in and visualize it in front of you, and connecting with it, and asking it to reveal its original agreement. Why did you and I agree and your wife agree to go through this co-created experience, because through time and space, everything in the natural world is created through natural original intention. And so there's an agreed co-created intention as to why you've come together as three souls to go through this. And at the time, this soul said to me that it was revealing to me that it wasn't time, that I was giving birth to something else. And it was wanting to draw my attention to the fact that part of what I'm here to birth and create in the world is to give life to, is this memory. And at the time, that was hard to hear, but over time, it helped me to come to terms with. And there will be a time when that soul can come in, and it will come in at a time when I will have learned how to hold this field of memory, so that soul can come in. Yeah, so that soul can come in and have a safe space to be the full expression of who it is without the interference. And so what I would say is, whatever you're going through in life, is we have the power and the ability to take a breath, to ground ourselves, to connect into natural and universal law and intelligence, and to ask why we have agreed to go through this experience, and what is it here to reveal to me? What am I here to see? What is it exposing to me? What is it that I need to learn? And the hardest part is to be open to hearing what those things are, and then
here's some information.
That's Siri talking.
That's interesting. Siri.
Wow.
Siri just said, here's some information, when you said being open to what it is you need to learn. Wow. How bizarre.
How bizarre, though. Gee.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I might have a look
You
at
know
what she
what that
showed me too. Yeah. What?
You know what that is? So that's actually natural law, just affirming. It's just saying, yeah. It's just giving us a little. You could say it could be like a little matrix glitch, but what it really is natural intelligence just saying, yes, we hear you.
I just got chills.
Yeah, me
Sorry,
too. So did I. I kind of want to know what the information was that she had for me. It's, wow.
Can I just say, Niamh, once again, thank you for sharing that, for being so open and vulnerable.
Yeah, thank you so
That
much.
was just
a lot for me.
It's gone into some interesting places.
Sure has.
The chat.
Yeah. Niamh, I hope we can do part 2 again sometime soon.
Yes, and me too. And I know that you can reach out at any time to connect, particularly with what you're moving through. And
thank you.
Yeah, the time and the space, it will reveal itself, and all is living, and the essence is still living and can be connected with, and it can support you in moving through this process. I can feel that deeply, yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much. On that note, we'll end today's episode. Everyone, be well.